Hey everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the Premodern Showdown Series 2. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined tonight by Flint Esville. Say hi, Flint.
Hi, everybody.
And tonight we have our starting match with Robin Lundh going up against Aaron Dix. And then later tonight we'll have Phil facing off against Bryan. So I will jump over to our band screen. So if any of you are new to the program, all the players have brought three different decks. And the caveat this season was they all had to be creative decks. And then whenever you play against an opponent, you are able to strike or ban one of the opponent's decks that they are not able to bring. And you can see on the screen that each of the players has one ban deck, and then they have two remaining decks. So based on that knowledge, they are able to pick one of the remaining two decks to bring to play tonight. So Robin had his Oath of Clerics decks, which we saw last week, and that deck has been banned. And then Aaron Dick's his Bant Counter Slivers deck was banned, which was also banned last week. So Robin has a choice between his blue, white, red wizards and his Pox deck. Uh, and then Aaron has the choice between his Jund Rock Fires and Forbidian. So Flint, you don't know what the players have picked. Do you have any predictions?
I'm gonna go with what do you call a deer with no eyes?
Oh
No
dear.
idea.
Okay. so Robin has elected to pick the Pox deck, and Aaron has selected the Forbidian. So let's jump over to our deck screen so we can take a look and digest maybe the matchup and how we think it's going to play out. So the Pox list by Robin is a mono black disruptive control. I don't know if control maybe loosely is the right word, but what it's trying to do is set up kind of a soft lock with Bottomless Pit, which is a 3 mana enchantment that is at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they discard a card at random. The also other main disruptive element is Pox, which is a sorcery for black, 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 which makes each player sacrifice lands, creatures, and lose 1/3 of their life. So 1/3 of their creatures, 1/3 of their lands, and they discard their 1/3 of their hand too. And so it's disruptive in that sense. Uh, is there anything else you want to add about the Pox deck?
No, pretty straightforward. It gets interesting on with the sideboard options that he has, but we'll just see how it plays out.
Mhm. And then over for Aaron's list is Forbidian. So Forbidian was a deck back in the day that was a mono blue, very counter heavy deck. And if you look closely at this list, you'll notice there are no copies of the card Ophidian, which was the deck name was between Forbid and Ophidian. So how come this deck is called Forbidian despite having no Ophidians?
That's a good question. And do you know what the name for fear of snakes is?
Uh, Whatever the scientific name for snake is, a
It's
phobia,
ophidiophobia.
ophidiophobia there.
Yeah,
So the reason why it gets the Ophidian name is because Shadow Mage Infiltrator takes the place of Ophidian. So the Johnny Magic Invitation card is a 3 mana 1/3 that has fear, and whenever it deals damage to the opponent, it draws a card. So with that in concert with a bunch of counter magic and disruptive spells in terms of duress and mesmeric fiend, it can play uh, either both like a tempo or a just a disruptive counter heavy game. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that the key part of this matchup will be whether Aaron can keep the key spells, which I'll say is Bottomless Pit and probably Ox from resolving. I think
agreed.
if Aaron is able to keep those um, either from resolving, then I think he has a good shot. That's also the assumption that he's able to keep a Shadow Mage Infiltrator in play. That makes things a lot easier. Do you feel like either player has an edge tonight based on the decks that they're bringing?
Um, I think Pox could have an edge, especially if he gets out quick and underneath some of Aaron's cards. I think I'm looking at the list here. Is there just the one boomerang in the main deck?
I
I think so. So if Robin can get a bottomless pit on the board sooner rather than later, under a duress or a boomerang, I think that could really disrupt Aaron. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. So let's go over to the match. The players have determined who's playing first with a die roll, and Robin won the die roll and has elected to play first. And Flint, you can let the players know that they can get started, and
Done.
we will start our first match.
All right. Shout out in chat. Which deck you think's gonna win?
Oh, I have a poll. I can do polls now.
Oh my God, we are so advanced.
Let's see if this
Look out.
works. All right.
Ooh,
Does that show up in chat?
it does.
All right. You got, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 minutes to vote, but get your votes in for who you think's gonna win. All right. So the first turn play from Robin is a swamp and then a cursed scroll. So that one is, I guess it shuts down the 1/1s, but it doesn't hit the Shadow Mage Infiltrator very well, because the Shadow Mage is a 1/3. But it can take out potentially Nightscape Familiar and Mesmeric Fiends. So it does have some utility there.
Just a great card to have on the board too, if Robin can get the game state where he wants it, where people are just drawing off the top.
Yeah, if he's able to kind of set up his thing, he's able to have control of what's in his hand by the card he draws every turn, and then his curse scroll is very reliable. Ooh, I do like the name. We should update it to Counter Noodle. That's a good name.
Cannon Noodle is good. It's no push-up lizard, but it's good.
All right, so Aaron just has a Polluted Delta, and then Robin is playing his trademark card of Cobalt Therapy. Though it wasn't on the first turn, which we have seen in the past when Robin wasn't sure exactly what his opponent wasn't sure what his opponent was playing, yet still decided to play a Cobalt Therapy and just name a card in the dark.
And that's an important point, chat. If you haven't watched this before, the players know what they can't play, but of the two remaining decks, they don't know what their opponent decides to play. So in the first series, Robin, on more than one occasion, on the play, played Cabal Therapy, which was pretty brave.
All right, it looks like the majority of players selected Robin for our winner for tonight. So we'll see if that holds true. I would have to give that a little bit of the edge to him, I think. I think the way the matchup plays out, I think it's slightly advantaged. Okay, so we see a Nightscape Familiar was named with Cabal Therapy, which hits, and the rest of Aaron's hand includes a Mana Leak, a Swamp, a Mesmeric Fiend, an Underground River, a Trade Wind Rider, and then the other blue card is a Fact or Fiction.
Yep.
I'm going to bring up Trade Wind Rider, because that one's kind of interesting. I don't know if we're going to get to the point where I think if that's in play and online, then Aaron's in pretty good shape. But it has, if he's got a board presence and that's online, then I think he will take over the game pretty easily.
Kind of hard to get a board presence against Innocent Bloods and Poxes, but it could happen.
Yes. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of comes down. I mean, so here we see a Mesmeric Fiend, and that's showing a Spinning Darkness and a Funeral Charm.
Yep.
So Funeral Charm would easily be able to dispatch the Mesmeric Fiend. The Spinning Darkness has a little bit more to set up in order to take out the Mesmeric Fiend. So,
well, a Swamp's pretty good here off the top, though. So now he can just activate the scroll and get his Funeral Charm back.
That's true. So the other card that Robin has played is the Rack. And that is primarily the way that he's going to deal damage. I guess Curse Scroll or Nether Spirit are the other options that he has. but the Iraq is a good way that once he's kind of in control of the game, he can just deal damage because his opponent has few to no cards in hand. All right, Aaron's gonna attack with the Mesmeric Fiend, but I think, yep, Robin
Yep.
will activate the Curse Scroll. The Mesmeric Fiend will die, and the Funeral Charm returns to his hand. All right, Aaron is at 19, right? Because he took a fetch. Okay,
Yes.
I'll update that. So Mishra's Factory is added to Robin's board. That's another card, a way for him to deal damage. But it also, I mean, it's a way for him to also prevent damage. Uh, Conveniently, that the Mistress Factory turns into an artifact creature, which can block creatures with fear. So that card is very effective against the
Yes.
Shadow Mage Infiltrator. That is something we did not mention in the pregame. So that card is actually pretty problematic for Aaron because he's never going to be able to counter that. And even if he does have bounce spells, it's probably going to come back down on a later turn.
Mike Arnold in chat thinking Aaron may be regretting not running Ice Quake.
Yeah, that'd be a good way to answer the Mishra's Factory. All right, Tradewind Rider has at the board. So this creature at least is a 1/4. So it's, but I guess you could use Funeral Charm. I guess Funeral Charm's almost -2, -1. So you'll have to wait till he can Spinning Darkness and use Curse Scroll together to kill that.
Yep.
And I think this Funeral Charm is going to be a discard a card mode.
There goes a Fiend.
All right, yeah, that one's not particularly good.
Then he's just going to scroll Aaron for 2 to the dome.
Okay. And Robin has
Oh, what a top deck.
yep, and Innocent Blood is a clean way to get rid of
Wow.
the Tradewind Rider, and now uh was he's flashing back. Oh, because he saw a second Factor Fiction, so he's gonna use this opportunity to activate the Mistress Factory into a creature, and then um flashback Wall Theory. Did he attack with it first or no? Yes, yes, he did. Okay, I see the light
He
goes
did,
down.
yeah.
Okay, I was to say he would have missed the opportunity, but yep. Okay. Well, then shouldn't another mana be tapped? But I guess it doesn't matter. Oh no, the Funeral Charm was the end of turn. Okay, never mind. We see a backup Tradewind Rider, so.
Okay.
But I mean, I see it difficult for Aaron to assemble a, a crew of creatures where he's able to use the Tradewind Rider. I feel like it's just pretty much like a 1/4.
Yeah, and Robin's got the scroll online, for the time being. And it looks like Aaron took damage from the rack as well, so he's at 13.
Okay. We got another shot with the Curse Scroll. Goes to 11. Robin's he's at 19. We see a Wasteland that takes care of Underground River. Now Aaron only has 3 mana. Got 2 cards in hand, so he's going to take
Takes
1 damage from the rack. He's going to send with his Tradewind Rider. But things do not look good for the Forbidian player.
Yeah, losing both Factor Fictions and then the land. Oof.
Yeah, and I guess even if you drew Shadow Mage Infiltrator, which I feel like in general is his best card, I think Robin has 3 cards he could exile to Spinning Darkness. Oh no! Spinning Darkness does not to a non-black creature, right?
I'm not sure. It looks like Robin went for a Pox, but that's going to get mana leaked.
Yes, Spinning Darkness only targets non-black creatures.
Hmm.
So at least if Aaron has that,
Shadow
then
Mage.
yeah, if he has a
Yeah.
Shadow Mage, then it can stay in play. So Aaron's at 7. He needs to do something quick. Okay, well, there's a Shadow Mage Infiltrator. I think that is pretty much the best card he needed.
Pretty good.
Because this is a clock and it will add cards to his hand, which both will help him in the long run, but also keep him from dying to the rack.
Hey, Phil. Hey, Jared. Welcome.
All right, here we see. So this Funeral Charm is going to make the Shadow Mage Infiltrator smaller, I'm presuming. Unless he
No, he
made him
for the
discard a card mode.
discard. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I
Yeah.
feel like that could backfire. I mean, I guess at this point he's putting him in a 5. When he passes the turn, he's going to take 2 more. I guess I guess Aaron probably doesn't have a way to recover his life. So I guess he's low enough that Robin feels that you can go for the kill. I guess that makes sense then. So Spinning Darkness. Can Spinning Darkness hit players?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I guess maybe Aaron just said he was in a spot that he couldn't win. It just looked like Robin was exiling cards. Okay, so it looks like Robin is taking our first game of this match. Let me just reset the life totals, then we'll look at sideboards to see if things can improve for either player. So does anything look appealing out of the Pox deck? There is Tormod's Crypt, Engineered Plague, Ensnaring Bridge. I think that's a Null Brooch. Phyrexian
Yeah.
Negator, Perish, and Unmask. Do any of those cards stand out as things that you would want to bring in against the Forbidian deck?
Um. Gosh, there's not much. I mean, could you make an argument for Unmask here? Is there anything in his deck that's not great against Aaron?
I think the worst card is probably Powder Keg. I'm trying to think because I feel like Aaron's cards are like 3 or 4 that he wants to kill, and like there's some bounce spells, and I guess and the you can hit Mesmeric Fiend on 2. You could maybe hit a Nightscape Familiar on 2, although I doubt it. Then Shadow Mage Infiltrator on 3, and then the Trader and Rider is 4. But other than that, there's not that many permanents. So I don't know. Powder Keg isn't the most exciting card. I wonder if there's any merit to bringing in like Engineered Plague and naming. I mean, it could get back. It can get rid of the. Like if you name Zombie, you can always kill the Nightscape Familiars, but or could always kill a Mesmeric Fiend to get a card back. Or you could just reduce the power of Shadow Mage Infiltrator to prevent it from dealing damage and drawing a card.
He probably wouldn't be great against fiends though, because he would lose whatever card in his hand forever if he played it preemptively, right? So he's probably going to name the familiar.
Sure, I was thinking more of a position of like he had. I guess he has enough ways to get rid of a fiend that it's probably not a problem. Um,
Chat's saying that Negator's potentially against the control deck just to try to get some quick pressure.
yeah, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron doesn't have that many like high damage sources. I mean, all his creatures are like 1 power. So I guess that makes a ton of sense.
Let's let's take a look at Aaron's deck and see what Robin might be expecting Aaron to bring in here.
Okay, I see the
Null.
first card is a null, and that card has definitely a lot of targets: Curse Scroll and Bottomless Pit, and the Powder Keg, which may or may not be in after sideboard. Uh, those all are cards that are pretty pivotal for Robin winning, so I think that cheap counterspell would be very good. Null Rod is also an option. It shuts down Curse Scroll, shuts down Powder Keg, prevents Mishra's Factory from tapping as a blocker, like pumping itself.
Mhm.
The Tormod's Crypts are a card. I don't know. I don't. really like it to fight Pox in terms of fighting Nether Spirit, but maybe one or maybe two. I don't think I would want to bring in three. It just seems like
Well, he's already going to probably bring in all four annuls, right?
yeah, yeah.
So if he's bringing in four cards already, what's he taking out, right? Like how much more value
Well, I
do
think
we
you're taking out
have?
like Mesmeric Fiend. I think there's just too many ways for it to die.
Okay.
The You could also make that same argument for Nightscape Familiar, though. I think a lot of your like really interesting draws, if a Nightscape Familiar goes unchecked, you can turn two Nightscape Familiar, turn three Shadow Mage Infiltrator with like a counter spell backup.
Hmm. It really helps make the deck work.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite the enabler. He's on the play, so he's probably going to keep the mana leaks in. And Robin's deck works on such a low like mana count anyway that leak is probably decent.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it for sure on the play. Anything else he brings out here? Maybe a
Uh,
forbid.
yeah, maybe.
I mean,
Um,
he's going to be losing so many cards in his hand anyway. He may not be able to take advantage of the buyback.
yeah, I think that makes sense. Like Forbid's a little bit clunky, so
Maybe one forbid for a null rod, another forbid for a crypt.
uh, yeah, yeah. Or I think I would bring in both null rods before the crypt, but um, it just seems like shutting down like Curse Scroll is better than. I feel like it's easier to deal with like another spirit, which I think Robin only has one of, right? Then it's like Cobalt therapies and whatnot. Oh, Robin might take out Spitting Darkness.
Yeah, I might take that out
That
if
might
I'm
be
Robin.
all right.
Should I let him know that they can go ahead and start?
Yeah, we'll jump back over to the match.
All right.
So I think things get a little bit better for Aaron after sideboarding, though. I mean, Phyrexian Negator could be actually a pretty big problem for Aaron. So maybe I'm wrong in that sense of things are getting relatively better for Aaron. But do you think do you think Robin still has a significant edge?
I mean, I think he has the biggest edge in game if there's a game three. I think Aaron's chances get a little bit better here on the play. But again, if he just holds up an island or a blue mana source in turn one and then he gets duressed or cabal therapied, it's going to feel really bad. So I think he's better off on the play, but I think he's still got a tough road ahead of him. If Robin has a slow start, I think Aaron's chances are much, much better.
All right. When Robin was putting card down, is he? Oh, did he mulligan then? Okay,
He
that's what it
did.
looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So
Game two. Here we
yeah.
go.
Right. Will we see the Shadow Mage Infiltrator take it down?
Mhm.
All right, Polluted Delta. We'll go and get. Guessing a swamp. I think you would wait if you're getting an island.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So
We're about to go
I'm
to Duress Town.
yeah, I'm predicting a duress.
It's a lovely swamp there, by the way.
That is a good swamp.
Not my favorite Mirage swamp, but all Mirage basics are just so gorgeous, with the exception of perhaps the forests.
All right, what are we seeing from this duress?
Bottomless Pit, Null Brooch, a Negator, and 3 lands, one of which is a factory. And there goes the Null Brooch.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, the camera didn't even help. But yeah, this is I think it's from Exodus. Let's see if I get it
Oh,
up here.
he was showing him what it was. I guess he
Okay.
wasn't going to
Yeah,
discard it.
this is a 4 mana artifact, and you pay 2, tap it, discard your hand, counter target non-creature spell. And so even if you don't have any cards in your hand, you can still activate it if you have the mana up. So looks like the
Bottomless
bottomless
Pit for
pit was
sure.
picked. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I would have picked. I don't know. What do you think?
Probably. I guess it all depends on. I mean, if you have something like a null, then maybe you'd be more inclined to keep the bottomless pit in your hand. But It depends on how big of a deal this negator will be, I guess.
Mhm. We got some love for Bottomless Pit in chat as well. Such a cool card. Really glad to see it played in this format.
Yeah.
So Comical Flop, the Waterfall Mirage Forest is absolutely gorgeous, and it's the one I run in all my decks. I'm not the biggest fan of the other forests, though. But Mirage, in terms of the standard sets, it has my favorite basic lands of all time.
Okay, so Robin drew a Dark Ritual, used it to attempt to cast the Null Brooch. So he chose that over the Negator, but it was mana leaked either way. So the Null Brooch, that's a good exchange for Aaron in terms of that is getting 2 cards for 1.
Yep.
And here we have a Duress.
Oh.
Well, that would be a.
Oh.
I guess that sequence would have been a lot better if Robin had cast the Phyrexian Negator, but since he doesn't have a non-land, non-creature spell in his hand, the Duress misses. So swamp, and Mishra's Factory, and he casts a Negator. But looks like a mana leak. Okay,
wow. So
so
that's great for Aaron.
it's kind of like the door's open, and now if like Shadow Mage comes down here, then I think you got a pretty good chance if you're Aaron, because you've. Well, I guess that Mishra's Factory is still there, so maybe Shadow Mage is not the perfect answer in the spot.
And
Yep.
here comes the factory.
Robin attacks for
So
2.
Tincteri in chat says underrated card for Pox, Bullwrath's Dungeon. That's a deep cut.
I don't know what that one is.
So counterspell here on the rack, just FYI.
Okay, so Volras Dungeon. It's a 5-man or 4-man enchantment. An player may pay 5 life during his or her turn to destroy this. Choose and discard a card. Target player has to discard a card. Plays only as a sorcery. All right. Yeah, I think the problem is like sometimes the Pox deck just doesn't have that many cards in his hand though. But yeah, that
By
one
the
is,
time they're casting the 4 mana cost.
yeah. But
Enchantment.
that card is definitely powerful. That actually seemed like it could go into like an aggro black deck if you're just ahead to kind of limit your opponent.
You could run that in Evil Enchantress. It's kind of a win more card, but it would be fun.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like Robin's down to 19.
Yeah, the Nightscape familiar. Okay, so Wasteland takes care of Mishra's Factory, so that's perfect. Oh, I guess there's another one. Not perfect. Not perfect. Take it back. I wonder if this Nightscape familiar gets to the point where he's just, well, obviously he's not attacking here, because I'm sure Robin would block. But if Aaron's going to be using his mana to block and regenerate, Duress is the play from Robin. And there's a mana leak.
Oh, wow.
2 counter spells. Well, I guess like on the other hand, if Robin was trying to clear the way for something, that doesn't really help when you have 3 counter spells in hand. So,
What do you think he drew?
well, I
Their
don't know.
scroll?
I mean, he could have drawn the Duress. Is probably what he drew.
Or okay, well, what do you think he has in his hand?
The land. Yep. So is this Scalding Tongues, I believe? This one's from Tempest, I think. During your upkeep, if you have 3 or fewer cards in your hand, this deals 1 damage to target opponent. That's another way for Robin to deal damage, but it is. Wait, oh, he used a counter. I saw the Mana Leak face up, but that's because it was revealed to Duress. Like he could have paid for Mana Leak. So whose top of the deck is better? Is it?
Ooh.
Is this a Morphling? We didn't talk about this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, obviously that's a good card, but the one thing is like Pox will. I guess 1/3 of 2 is just 1, so
Yep.
So that Nightscape Familiar is actually pretty important in the spot.
And it's important for Innocent Blood as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that puts Aaron in a better position.
Yeah, well, I mean, how quick of a clock is this? If you're just willing to use your mana, because I mean, your mana leak is not very good. So we have. Do you need to get
He's probably
flying
just
here?
gonna pump it once.
Would you give it flying, or would you say? I guess
I mean,
I
you
guess
could
there's
always attack
I
and
guess
wait for
there's
the
no
activation,
yeah.
right?
I guess there's no good with damage not going on the stack. I guess there's no decent exchange for the morphling if it is blocked. So all right, this is a I cannot tell.
I can't tell what it is either. Maybe it was a dark ritual. Yeah, it was a dark ritual into bottomless pit, just so
Oh,
he could
okay,
leave up
okay.
mana for mana leak.
He had three
You know,
mana though.
he did.
I guess this gives him the availability to block with I don't know. I guess he was going to discard the dark ritual anyways. That's probably his thought. All right, so bottomless pit is in play, but lucky for I don't know if it's lucky. Good thing for Aaron is that he has the morphling in play. So I think if Robin misses on his draw step, or what are we at for life total? Is it 15?
It's 15 all.
Okay, that's before this attack. So
Correct.
he's willing to pump it through
Twice.
twice. Yeah, I'm like D3 tapped. Yep. Okay, so
So his Robin's
5.
down to 10.
So yeah, so barring any interaction from Robin, he's on a 2-turn clock, and that's a powder keg. That one's
It's
gonna
gonna
be
take a while.
yeah, that one's gonna be too slow.
What an iconic card from back in the day, too.
Yeah, uh, it doesn't see
Really
any
glad that we. Go ahead, sorry.
love anymore because of the ratchet bomb that has been printed. That is pretty much just better. All right, Superman gonna deal 5 more.
Yeah. He's doing what Superman does.
Yeah, bottomless pit definitely like doesn't allow you to sit back, but I mean the deck is set up that it usually kind of commit all the good cards or get the threats it needs to on the table before it plays bottomless pit. But Robin draws another card that's ineffective and he scoops it up. So that Morphling definitely was a very key card there, that it was a quick evasive clock. All right, let's go back to our deck lists. We'll revisit
Alrighty.
this. So we did see the negators come in, and we saw the powder kegs that were still in. So I don't know what cards you think he's taking out then. The Spinning Darkness. How many of those are in the deck? Hard for me to. I think it's just one. Then I don't know what other cards don't seem that effective. I mean, I kind of like Innocent Blood, and Funeral Charm isn't that bad because it kills the Mesmeric Fiends and the Nightscape Familiars. Are you ever taking out Pox?
I don't know. I mean, he needs to keep in enough cards to like be able to get underneath the beginning, but also uh, take down Aaron's hand to then land a bottomless pit. So I think that Spinning Darkness comes out. But in terms of the other cards, I think it gets kind of hard. I don't know what I would do here, and I haven't played enough of Pox to really know
Yeah,
what the correct board here is.
the card I would have taken out, I think, is Powder Keg, but we saw that. So
Yeah.
the Nether Spirit, I think, is fine. I mean, it's the one copy I think is always decent. It just gets in the way of stuff, and it comes back, and I don't know, like the opportunity cost of having the one nether spirit is not very big.
Yeah, it looks like they're saying in the chat that Robin has said that Pox is the worst card in Pox. So maybe he boarded out Pox.
I mean, the thing I could think of is like maybe he thinks him having more mana in play is pretty important, and obviously Pox gets rid of your lands as well. So I think that's the maybe the biggest reasoning, but it's kind of an interesting take. I mean, I haven't played too many games with the Pox deck, so I can't say for sure. But I guess to me, just looking at Powder Keg, it just seems pretty underwhelming in this matchup. So, and we did see him bring in at least two different sideboard cards in the Null Brooch and the Phyrexian Negator. So he definitely took out some number of cards.
Yeah, I mean, Pox certainly has some utility in that it can, get creatures like Morphling, right? Or it can get creatures like the Shadow Mage. Um, but it'll be interesting to see what he ended up doing.
How many Morphlings are in this list? Is it two, or is it just one?
It's 2.
Okay. All right. So that will be a card that Aaron would like to see, and there are four wastelands. Is that correct? Or, I
That's
mean,
correct.
all right.
Yep.
So we talked about Aaron answering the Mistress Factory, but he does have the four wastelands to do that. All right, let's jump back over to the match. I don't know if you've done already, but the players can start if they are ready. Okay, so we're down to game 3 of this first match. The first game was pretty convincing, I would say, what Robin did. But that second game was almost kind of the script was flipped. That there were a couple opportunities where I felt like Robin could have drawn a particular card to get back in there, but the Morphling coming down and having a creature for protection of like innocent blood or pox made it a very quick clock and made short work of Robin.
Oh, absolutely. And again, we talked about Aaron being on the play and the advantage, and he had kind of the 1-2 punch. He had the duress. He had mana leak. He had another mana leak. Robin didn't have a ritual. He would have lost it to duress probably, but Robin didn't have that fast start, and then Aaron was able to slow things down enough and eventually get the cards he needed. So we'll see what happens now. I think Robin has advantage now that he's on the play. Um, but I'm excited that we have a game 3.
Yeah. And kind of the games have not gone, at least the game that Aaron won, I guess, is not exactly how I thought it would go. I thought it would always ride kind of on Shadow Mage Infiltrator and you just overwhelm your opponent with card advantage. But the
The tables have
Morphling,
turned.
yeah, the Morphling is something that I overlooked of how quick it can close out a game.
Wow, look at that.
Duress reveals a Duress, an island, a mana leak, a counterspell, a null, island, and polluted delta. So a pretty consistent, steady hand. Uh, you could make an argument, I think, for each one of these cards. So I guess I'm not even going to predict what Robin's going to take because
I think he's going to take the duress.
I think all of them are reasonable options. I think
He's
it's
got a
either,
ritual and a negator in his hand, so he's going to take the duress.
well, if he had a negator and a ritual, he would have played it. I think. I think you either take your duress or a null. I think the one mana cards are.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, a
All
null
right.
is taken. I'm not very familiar with the black white pox list that chat is talking about. Have you seen that one, Flint?
I haven't seen that one. No, I mean we haven't seen a whole lot of Pox in the monthlies, but I if anyone has it, post it on the Premodern page. Love to see it.
So this duress is revealing a wasteland, a funeral charm, a scalding tongs, bottomless pit, and a curse scroll. And Curse Scroll is the card that's chosen.
Yep.
All right, so Robin's going to resolve Scalding Tongs. Hard not to say Scalding Tarn. That one rolls off the tongue a little bit more. That one I'm used to saying a little bit more than Scalding Tongs.
Scalding tongs. Those tongs to tongs, tongs, tongs.
Yes. All right.
So Aaron just passes it right back.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, this situation I think is pretty good for Aaron. All right, a third land. That's what Robin drew, or well, within the last 2 turns he did. So there's one unknown. But yeah, like I mean, like bottomless pit. I think easily you just meets a counterspell, or
yeah.
a mana leak presumably. But and then Robin's kind of at the mercy of his deck. So he's using Funeral Charm to make Aaron discard a card. Then he discards an island. Okay, and then the rack is the other card. Will this merit a counterspell? It does.
Yeah.
Mana leak.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. And there's just a bottomless pit in Robin's hand. So if would you take this opportunity if you had Shadow Mage Infiltrator? Would you play it? All right.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, he had the duress, but I mean, I think you wait because you kind of have
Yeah.
a bit of an advantage
yeah.
with the counter magic in hand.
All right. So
Aaron's
Robin's
down to 17.
okay. Damage from the Scalding Tongues and fetch land I missed. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good for Aaron. I mean, there's certainly spots where Robin can turn it around, but if Aaron hits, okay, Shadow Mage Infiltrator, I think this, if this stays in play, like, and there are cards that Robin could have to answer it. But here's a negator. Okay.
Ooh.
All right, I didn't consider that. So
Now we got some magic. We got a Shadow Mage Infiltrator and a Negator on the battlefield. This is great.
how many ways does Aaron have to bounce the negator? There's a boomerang and 2 recoils. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Um, if I'm assuming Aaron's not attacking here, but if is there a point where I mean I guess the card you kind of want is like Nightscape Familiar, and then another swamp, so that you could like get to the point where you're able to block and regenerate and just make. That's probably might be too slow though, because Robin would just have to sacrifice 1 permanent every time, and you're still taking 4 trample damage.
Yeah.
I guess the Shadow Mage could block, and you'd have to lose another permanent and take a lot less damage.
All right.
I always get nervous whenever I play a Phyrexia Negator. It just seems like you're so all in on it, but pretty good against the blue-black deck when a lot of their creatures are just 1 power. And
So it looks like Aaron's just going to take the full 5 and go to 10 here.
I think that makes sense. At least for the first one. The next hit is a lot closer, but all right. So a counterspell on, is that a duress that was
It
cast?
was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this looks good for Robin now. I guess I spoke too soon.
We got some great back and forth here.
Yeah,
Who
and
knows?
it
Maybe
was
we'll get the recoil.
and it was interesting that like Aaron had a decision of whether he wanted to tap out to play the Shadow Mage, and I'm not saying that he's wrong, but because like if you have 2 more lands in your hand, then you're able to say, okay, I'll wait a couple turns. But I think you say, okay, I'll have my shields down for this 1 turn. We'll see what he has. And unfortunate for Aaron, it was a negator. All right, the 1 damage draws Aaron a card. It looks like it was a Polluted Delta.
Well, Aaron's got 3 other cards in hand right now.
Does he? Okay.
Robin's got 2 in hands. He's got to be mindful of the recoil, certainly.
Yeah, he can't really do anything about it though. But and I mean, even there, like he has other you just keep another card in your hand is all you need to do.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But I think the Scalding Tongs is actually pretty key here because even if this negator does get answered, Aaron's on a pretty quick clock, assuming that Robin's hand stays low, which is pretty easy for him to do. Yeah, some blue sources of damage like Psy Blast would be pretty good against the negator if it were legal, but we are seeing a Dissipate get rid of
Negator number 2.
Newly cast negator.
And Aaron's down to 4. He just took the full 5 there again, obviously.
Okay. I mean, I guess you have to swing anyways because you're gonna take 1 from the skull. I guess you don't have to because you wouldn't take all the damage from the toughness of the Shadow Mage. Oh, Wasteland took out a Wasteland. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, Aaron's bluffing something.
So Aaron's down to 3.
Yep. And this negator.
Oh, here's the recoil.
Just in time. All right. And he erased the Scalding Tongs, even if this negator doesn't come down. So what was discarded? Bottomless pit. Okay.
Oh, all right.
A ritual negator. Okay.
Show me that second recoil.
Yeah.
Oh, and looks like that's the game.
His hand two lands and a counter spell.
Wow.
He would have taken 2. He could have lived. I guess it's probably pretty moot though. The Scalding Tongs would have killed him.
Yep.
Because he could have blocked with the Shadow Mage and then taken 2 trample damage, and then 1. But things are looking pretty grim either way. All right, let's jump over to our players, hear what they had to say about the match.
Oh, I think they're like waiting for us to talk now.
Yep.
And I was waiting for them to talk.
I have you guys unmuted if you have us unmuted, but if you guys want to talk about anything, just kind of your post-game talk, just go ahead.
I just think I put him in a tricky position that other control decks aren't in because I have so many artifact win cons, artifact and enchantment cards that are like straight haymakers against him. So like Curse Scroll, the rack less so because he can just FOF, right? And FOF and Shadow Mage, but Curse Scroll, Malbrouge, Scalding Tongs, there's a lot of cards that he has a hard time to interact with. Even for its Negator, he has a pretty hard time to interact with. He just needs like bounce and counterspell, hopefully. So my plan was pretty focused on just like turning into a haymaker deck where I'm trying to just play a must counter every turn, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not. For some reason, I didn't see the negator coming, and I should have.
They were right there in the board. You have my list.
No, for sure, absolutely. Yeah. So I was focusing on the artifact win cons, obviously, out of the board, but I had that one scary turn. I'm like, it can't be anything crazy right here. Like there's a lot that I could survive to get this out there.
Was it when you tapped out for the Shadow Mage?
When I tapped out for the Shadow Mage.
And I believe your words were, "Let's see what will happen."
Let's see what happens.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Always. I mean, I think that makes sense in that spot. We talked about it. Like you have your shields down for 1 turn.
Yeah.
And then you're fine.
And honestly, this deck has to do that a lot because it's not actually super counter heavy control. It's a creature based control.
Sure.
And I think that when people think about it, they think about it as a super counter heavy deck because of the name. But no, you're playing an awful lot of creature based control, you know, getting the mesmerics and the Nightscapes out there to tap to the trade wind and stuff.
I totally blanked on you having Malrods in sideboard. I should have,
Oh,
should have been more aware of that. That's really annoying. Did you keep the Fiends out in game 2 also when you
I
were?
did, yeah.
You did, okay. Because I thought maybe you would keep them in. So I, on the draw, I kept in Funeral Charms to just kill your dorks. Because it also kills the, what's it called? Nightscape, since it's not damage. And then I took out the Poxes because on the draw, I feel like they just get countered. And they're not as high impact as a card like Negator, which I always want to have in.
You took the Poxes out of Pox. That's.
I mean, the version the version I plan to play after this is closer to Andy's, which is I'm going. So I started with 4 Pox, 2 Bottomless Pit. This one has 3 and 3, and the next version will have 4 Pit and 2 Pox because Pit is just a better card. But yeah, it's more a rack deck than it is a Pox deck at this point.
Sure.
And then we had a little discussion about powder keg. I think Aaron was trying to trick me. I was boarding for game 3 after I played that. I played a powder keg and then I died and we were boarding and I said out loud, I can't figure out how good powder keg is because you can just regenerate. And he goes, well, it's really good against the Fiends. That I now see that he pointed out.
In my defense, it is really good against the Fiends.
It's really good. That's the thing. Like,
but so much of your deck is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think you can keep them in if I have Funeral Charm left in. It just feels really bad. So I boarded out most of the Fiend removal anyway. But yes. Any comments from our hosts?
Like, what were your thought of the matchup, like, before you sat down tonight? Like, when you, I guess you didn't know exactly what your opponent was playing, but once the potential, did you think that this would be what your opponent brought, and what did you think? Did you think one player had the edge or not?
I thought I would be losing to Rock until, to Jund, until until I'm making fun of you, but I'm playing Pox, so you know you can joke that. Until the moment Aaron wrote in the group chat, he said, I banned clerics because I don't want you to feel like you have to play the same deck 2 weeks in a row, which, like, fair. I was thinking in my head, I ban slivers, I play clerics. It's the most solid deck against both of them probably, or specifically I think it's the most solid against Rock probably. So when he banned that, I was like, oh, he should still play John. Then I think Pox is my best bet there because Wizards hates card like Blastoderm, which is just like, oh, you're just about to take 15 whenever one of those results, you know?
Right.
So I just had Pox because of that, and then this was the matchup, and I wasn't sure. Factor Fix a really hard card to beat, so I got very
not when you Cabal Therapy away 2 of them in the
I got very
therapy
with the flashback there because I was like, there's no way I let him cast 1 Factor Fiction, right? So I had to sack my land to get rid of it, but then I hit 2. So sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, the Forbidden deck, I guess, performed. It looked like a bad matchup on paper, I guess, is what I was thinking. That just the way that Robin's threats lined up, that they could either be under counter magic with like a Dark Ritual, or just be like the Rack or Curse Scroll on turn 1, and then just so many discard spells might like clear a path to resolve them. But like the first game felt like it was pretty close for Robin, but like the second and third game definitely felt like the blue-black control deck had a good handle on things.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything that this deck is particularly super scared of in the field, just because, like Mano keeps saying, you pack enough duresses in a deck one way or the other. You know, 4 duress, 4 mesmeric fiend, and 4 wasteland in a Brewers group. That seems pretty all right. And a bunch of counter magic.
And counter magic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got some answers there.
I think it's like you said, it forces itself to tap out a lot, and then the fact that I have so many discard spells, it's not so easy, but it's somewhat easy for me to find the turn pretty early where you're sitting on like 2 blue sources and a counter spell, and like 2 counter spells, and I get to duress you, and you feel like you have counters, maybe, I don't know, something like that. and then I can sneak in something.
Yeah, and normally when you can keep a familiar on the table, it doesn't feel so bad to be able to tap 2 or 3 mana to play a creature. But if you can't keep a Nightscape familiar on the table, it gets a little scary.
Sure.
In I think in all the games, I had like one turn where I was terrified something bad was going to hit the table, and it won. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
That was the sideboard plan, was all cards he's scared of. Every turn I want you to feel, oh no, is he playing it this turn?
Yeah.
For some reason, so I didn't take a super close look at the sideboard, but I was not, for some reason, I was not expecting a negator.
Oh yeah, I wasn't expecting the null rods, but luckily I didn't have like a curse scroll handing in 3.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I love me a negator.
I knew this one was going to be a tough matchup. All of your decks are, like I said in our group chat, it's pick your poison.
I feel the same about you, but I feel just better.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if that one turn, like when you cast that Shadow Mage Infiltrator, if the negator wasn't there that turn, I think you pretty easily would have won that game. So
Right.
That easily could have been different, but yeah, the negator was there, and that definitely was problematic for your deck.
I knew something was there by the way that he was thinking about tapping the mana and looking what I had in hand. I knew something was there, but I thought it was going to be a bottomless pit or, something that would be terrible. But I figured I had to run it out and see.
I think my favorite thing, even though it didn't matter much, was secretly my favorite thing was probably how good my silly scalding tongues were, because you can't gain, like, you can draw as many cards as you want to take one.
Yeah.
But my favorite little thing was when you recoiled and my hand was exactly Dark Ritual and a random card, so I could just discard the random card and ritual it back out like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Well,
and I had drawn the waste so that I wasted your land, and I'm like, all right, okay, now I can do this, because I had the recoil in hand, but I couldn't stop it if it came back out, and I had sideboarded out the other recoil, so I could only stop it the one time. So I kept letting you attack for 5, and I'm going like, there has to be a time where I could recoil this thing at the end of your turn and be able to counter it when you try to cast it again. And never came up where there was a chance.
Sure.
How fun was it to play that game with cards like Negator and Morphling and Infiltrator? Like, pretty iconic stuff, guys.
I love playing Morphling.
Yeah, Morphling's still good. Even without the damage on the stack, Morphling's still got a quick clock that is easily protected. So.
Oh yeah.
It was fun dying against it, but maybe I say that because I actually felt like I had outs, like I didn't feel, because I play Innocent Blood and stuff, right? So I could have ripped like Funeral Charm into Innocent Blood into Innocent Blood or something. So I had a few outs, but it was fun. It's fun to see that card. So I enjoyed getting beat by a flying 5/1.
They were fun to watch. There was a little bit of a back and forth there with the tide kind of turning. So from, a commentator perspective, and I think chat as well, we were all like, oh, well, now Aaron's back in it. Oh, well, Robin's got this now. Like, they were really fun games to watch.
Yeah.
Aaron also came up with a defense of mine and mana strategy, which is you play 8 discard spells in every deck, right? The defense is that Duress is really good viewer card for Twitch, because everyone plays with open information.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the motivation.
It's just great for the viewers. That's why we're doing it.
Robin Lundh, magnanimous guy over here.
Okay.
He said it, not me.
All right.
I did make that comment when we were playing. Yeah, it was an observation as we were both sitting here with a hand out on the table.
All right. Well, we're gonna let you guys go as we get the other players set up, but we will. We'll see you next week. Thanks for the games tonight. They were fun to watch.
Congrats, Robin.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
All right, later.
All right. So let's jump quick over to our schedule. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break We're just going to get our other players for our second match, which would be Phil and Bryan, set up, and then we'll be returning shortly. So don't go anywhere. It'll probably be about 5 minutes, hopefully even less. And then we will start the second match of this episode. So stay tuned. We will be back shortly. Okay, everyone, we are back. So we will be starting our second match. So this is between Phil and Bryan. And I'll jump over to the band screen so we can get an idea of how this was set up. So Phil's 3 decks available to him are the Blue-Green Griffin Canyon combo deck, which we saw last week, the Esper Zombie Still deck, and then Sunder Nickfit. Then Bryan's decks are Mind Slicer, The Birds, and Solfatara Springs. And last week we saw Bryan play the Solfatara Springs, which was quite an exciting game or match. So I recommend you check that out if you haven't.
Indeed.
But going to this match, Bryan has elected to strike the Esper Zombie Still deck, and Phil has chosen to prevent Bryan from playing the Solfatara Springs deck. So of these 2 decks, Phil has chosen the Sunder Nickfit deck to play, which
And the chat goes wild.
Yes, I am very excited. Very excited to see this deck in action. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work or how it's going to play out, but I'm excited nonetheless. And then Bryan has chosen Mind Slicer, which is kind of similar to the Pox decks we just saw, which we'll go over now that we will go over to the deck list screen. We'll talk a little bit about what we have going on. All right. Lundh, do you want to try and break down this behemoth of a deck? There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. So he's basically trying to use Veteran Explorer to get a bunch of lands out sooner rather than later. And then through a combination of Mana Bond and Oath of Scholars, draw a bunch of cards, but he can also hide cards underneath Gusta's Scepter before he discards them to Mana Bond, so he can also draw from Oath of Scholars. He's also got Sunder in here to return all lands, an Upheaval to return all lands, and then put them right back into play with Mana Bond. And I believe he even, they talked about this on the podcast, but is the donate in this list? I don't actually see it in this list. He talked about like donating a Library of Ling to the opponent and then black vicing them out, but I don't think that's necessarily in this list. But
okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of wild things that he basically wants to do here. But eventually, I think his win condition is a Treetop Village.
Or Black Vice, Upheaval in the Black Vice to deal.
Or the Black Vice, yeah.
A bunch of
I
damage.
don't see the donate. Is the donate not in this list? Oh.
I don't think there's a donate in
that
this
makes
list.
Me so sad. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the first turn that you cast Upheaval, when you pass the turn, they're not going to discard until the end of their turn. So they're going to take at least one Black Vice trigger of a lot of damage, ideally. So yeah, the Veteran Explorer puts lands into play for both players. So that, while normally is a drawback, Phil has designed the deck to try and take advantage of it, that the Sunder or the Upheaval will just have additional cards in their opponent's hand to take more damage to the Black Vice. Okay, so not exactly sure how the Sunder Nickfit deck, how smooth it's going to be, but it looks really cool. I'm really excited to see it. What it is up against is the Mind Slicer deck. And like I said, there is an overlap between the deck that we just saw with Robin with the Pox deck. But so like cards that are similar: Cabal Therapy, Dark Ritual, Curse Scroll, Duress, the Rack, Bottomless Pit, and I guess Mishra's Factory and Wasteland. But do you want to talk about the differences between the Mind Slicer deck and the Pox deck?
Yeah, so the Mind Slicer deck is trying to take out the opponent's hand in one fell swoop, obviously, and then take advantage of the Rack and Bottomless Pit to continue to strip cards from their hand. This version, though, opts for the Graveyard and Madness strategies of Call of the Herd and Push-Up Lizard, otherwise known as Basking Root Walla. He can kind of play the long grindier game, too, with the Curse Scroll. but it's got, it's a pretty heavy disruption here as well with Cabal Therapy and Duress. This is a pretty strong deck, I would say. Maybe it's the strongest of Bryan's 3 lists, and we still haven't seen the birds in action, but it's just got a lot of those pre-modern staples. And I'm a little worried about our dear friend under Nick Fit, to be honest.
All right, let's jump over to our match. If you would like to let our players know that they can start.
Push-up lizard, aka Baskin Root Walla, aka Mox Lizard, according to
Mox
chat. I
Yeah.
love that. Well done.
All right, so Bryan has won the play. And I'm gonna set the poll up for you guys so you can predict who our winner will be. So you
So
guys
we
got
see-
a couple of minutes to let us know who you think is going to win.
We see turn 1 Duress here from Mano, and we see Forest, Undiscovered Paradise, Treetop Village, Gustus Scepter, and Cabal Ritual, and that was it. Okay, he takes the Scepter.
How often do you think that's happened in the past? Scepter. I don't think that card has been dressed. I mean, I'm sure it has, but that often. Gooses.
Probably not.
Right, so here we see a Cabal Therapy off a Undiscovered Paradise. And I mean, in the dark, are you naming like something like Bottomless Pit?
Probably. We see just straight up disruption there for Bryan. What does he follow it up with? Is that another Scepter?
I think so.
Okay. Haha. He had a spare. Gustus spare Scepter.
Yes. All right, Wasteland. That gives Bryan the option to get rid of the Undiscovered Paradise. And he elects not to use it. First time in history. I doubt it. I'm sure somebody's duressed that card before.
It's probably happened.
There's a lot of Magic games have been played.
Now, whether or not it's happened in pre-modern is another question.
That's true.
A lot of pre-modern firsts this tournament, perhaps.
Yes. All right. Treetop Village has entered the party. So, yeah, those Cabal Therapies are kind of tricky here because it's like the Scepter's in play. So, even if the cards, I mean, the cards that Bryan knows about right now are lands. But even if he's really trying to protect a certain card, he can tuck it under there for a while. All right, Curse Scroll. Mano adds to the board. So now he will set up something that's a damage source, but feels like, oh, okay, this Cabal Therapy, taking the other Cabal Therapies is pretty good. Though it will turn on the Curse Scroll a little bit sooner, but we see the other card is a Bottomless Pit. Okay, upkeep. I'm gonna guess. I mean, it's kind of awkward having like this. Okay, oh, Call of the Herd. All right, that was a good one to draw.
Seems pretty good.
And that will apply some pressure. And if a land joins, okay, we got a Bromp Snapfinger's token.
And is that one of like the test cards from Wizards? That Call of the Herd is different.
Yes,
I know
the
Bryan said he had some of those.
yeah, they were testing out a different alternate card frame. I don't know how, if they were just like a few of them were printed and then they were like somehow got out in the wild when they shouldn't have.
They
But
stampeded out of WotC headquarters.
it definitely is a cool collector piece. They look pretty cool if you ask me. All right, the Brown token will come in. We are at. Mano took one. Has he only taken one from Painlands?
I
think so.
believe so.
I'm gonna say it's 17 to 19. I can see it's definitely 19 for Mano. Oh. Looks like the chat is saying you got him from Worth Wolpert, so you can blame Worth for him having those.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, this 3-3 is actually like a reasonable way to get things done, I think, for Bryan. Like the game is a lot different if he doesn't have that 3-3 on that turn. That I think Phil just has a lot more time. Bryan will take a damage to cast the Bottomless Pit, but
Scepter is doing its thing.
you exile the card face down, right? So Bryan doesn't know what's under there. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Yeah, face down. Phil can look at it anytime. All right, he randomly discarded an Undiscovered Paradise. Yeah, this is hard because I mean, like we saw some expensive spells in Phil's deck, like Upheaval and Sunder. I guess I mean the Scepter is the saving grace, I think, but it's pretty awkward because there's not that much that Phil can do to prevent the 3-3 from coming in. Yeah, he's using his opportunity to attack Bryan because the Wasteland's on the field from his side. So if he wanted to block the 3-3, he would just use his mana and Bryan would just use Wasteland. So we saw the Bottomless Pit make Bryan discard a card, and it turns out it was a Basking Root Walla.
Indeed.
That is deck building at your finest. That's the way it's meant to be. There we go. Let's get him in there. That's a Basking Root Walla.
He's back. So Bryan trying to decide whether or not he wants to maybe flashback Call of the Herd or just take out the Treetop Village.
Well, he needs another mana if he wants to flashback. It costs 4 to flashback.
Oh, that's right.
So that was just the upkeep. I think at the end of turn, I think he used the Scepter to protect his last card from the Bottomless Pit. But yeah, Phil's in a sticky situation because I think he just wants lands for a few turns. And the Scepter can only put all of them back, right? You can't just put one.
I think we just need to have that card up for the entire match.
Yep. I looked at one of the lines of text. I didn't look at the other. Return a card you removed. So attachment returns 1. Whenever you lose control of it, put all cards removed into the graveyard. Okay.
Yep.
So if it dies, then everything dies. But yeah, you get things back one at a time, which in this matchup is actually maybe more beneficial because if you built up a hefty collection under that Scepter and you had to bring it all back, then you'd be vulnerable to the Bottomless Pit again. But right, Mano is going to attack with his 2 creatures, and he's going to take a damage to pump up.
Bumped.
Yeah. So Phil's going to take 6 down to 8. And he did use the Wasteland on the Treetop Village. The cards that Phil had added last turn are Library of Lang and Mana Bond.
And he's going to scoop him up.
Yep. So okay. 1 game to the Mind Slicer deck.
The elephant, with the help of his trusty reptilian sidekick, makes short work of Sunder Fit, unfortunately.
All right, let's look at the sideboard. There are Tormod's Crypt, but it's kind of like one of those cards where it's just like, I don't know, is this something you want to bring in?
Snaring Bridge seems pretty good.
Seal of Cleansing takes care of Bottomless Pit, Curse Scroll. I think that's a card I'd be bringing in. Yeah, I agree that Ensnaring Bridge is good, though. I have to imagine that Mano is going to be bringing in answers so that we might see a Gigapede come in. I don't know.
We might.
A recurring way of just dealing with stuff. I mean, the Ray of Revelation is a card that could destroy the bottomless pit, whether it gets discarded or not. So definitely some options that Phil can bring in. I don't know exactly what cards he wants to take out. Do you want to make any predictions, or do you just want to start looking at Bryan's deck?
Let's just take a look at Mano's deck.
Okay. All right. So we see Torment Crypt doesn't seem that good. Two Naturalized definitely seem relevant.
Oh yeah.
There's a Ray of Revelation and Snaring Bridge of his own. Don't think the enchantment one could come in. I mean, there's enough enchantments. There's Mana Bonds, though that one's particularly not good to snipe. The Oath of Scholars, I think, is a reasonable target. Are there any other enchantments that are pivotal for Phil's plan? I can't think of any.
No, but I think it's worth it to bring it in for the Oath of Scholars alone.
Sure. Like we might see something like a Treetop Village or a Genesis just for some more long game. Are there any cards that are not good? The Diabolic Edict seems underwhelming against the minimal creature, the Veteran Explorer deck.
Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, he has Gigapede, but it's not good against that either, really. So I think those definitely come out.
Yeah. And that's a snuff out, not a dystopia, right? Yeah. Looks like the mana cost does not have black in it, so yeah, so I think Phil's bringing in some sideboard cards, but it's kind of like I don't know if it dilutes his plan too much or it'll be interesting. Like I said, I have no idea how this Sunday Neckfit deck works, so it seems like that the pressure that Bryan applies in terms of especially if he's getting like a 3/3 down reasonably quickly, then I think it makes things problematic for Phil. That if he I think that game is pretty different if Bryan doesn't have that early 3/3.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward here for Bryan. Just continue with business as usual. Bring in the Naturalizes and the Ray of Revelation, and just beat up Phil before he can develop his game plan.
Okay, so let's head on back down to our player. It looks like our players are still shuffling up. Looks like people are saying that Phyrexian Tower or High Market. Well, those sacrifice creatures. Oh, so you're talking about the Nickfit deck? To sacrifice like the Veteran Explorer? Because Bryan's deck isn't like sacrificing creatures. Because Bottomless Pit makes you discard cards. But he only has like the 4 creatures, so I don't know. Neither of those cards. It seems like there's an opportunity cost of them just being colorless lands a lot of the time. Not enough powder kegs in the sideboards. In general, I think powder keg is a reasonable card, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of times when I have it, it you don't get as much counter or card advantage that you want. Like it not hitting enchantments, I think, is really big. There's just usually I feel like if you get an enchantment and a creature that have the same mana cost, it'd be a lot easier to take advantage of the powder keg. But I don't know.
I agree. I actually, when I started playing Premodern, I had assumed that it did hit enchantments. And I remember I was running it and lost a game because I thought it hit enchantments and it did not. It should, but it almost quite often it's a 1-for-1 trade. I think you're lucky to get a 2-for-1 in a lot of matches. It's still a good sideboard card in a lot of matches. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's quite as good as it probably should be.
All right, so Phil gets to be on the play. I don't know what like the ideal draw for his deck is, but I'm hoping we see it so we can go to a third game. That would be pretty cool. All right, so we got
Veteran
a turn
Explorer?
1 mana bond. All right.
All right, I love this.
How many lands are we putting into play? Mana bond from Exodus. Have you ever tried to to brew with this card?
Not in Premodern. I played around with it a little bit in Legacy Lands back in the day, but ooh. All right, gets the Enlightened Tutor, and we do see 3 lands here from Phil.
Okay, so we see Forest, Island, Gemstone Mine, Treetop Village.
All right.
Okay.
And chat remarks he has a playtest duress as well.
Yep, that one looks pretty sweet. So is that one just like
Uh,
naturally black bordered? Kind of looks like it.
Kind of hard to tell, but yeah, it looks like it.
All right. The rack is a pretty good response when your opponent has a mana bond in play.
You know what's better than the rack?
What?
2 racks.
Sure. Rack City. So we seal a cleansing, right? Is that what that was?
Yeah, it was
Yep.
a Scylla cleansing.
Okay, take
out one of them.
Take a rack. So how much damage did Phil take?
He's down to 14.
Okay. And Mano has taken just 1 damage from the duress.
Yes.
All right, and he gets to attack with a Mishra's Factory. Was that one pumped or was it? No, he added another rack, so it was just 2.
Wow. Just no mercy here.
No.
Phil is down to 6. That is brutal. 3 racks.
Well, it's almost like, I mean, I think Phil could have had a shot, like if those racks didn't just come down. Like that's a really good foil to the mana bond, is just to pop a bunch of racks on the table. All right.
Well, he had a good opening hand because he could have put the mana bond ability on the stack at the end of turn, then cast the Enlightened Tutor and gotten an Oath of Scholars on top of his library that he'd draw next turn and cast, and then he was going to sort of try to go off from there. So he had a good opening hand, but things went a little south, obviously.
So did he send with Treetop Village? Does he not want that one to block? Man was at 13.
Yeah.
I'm confused. Oh, there's the 4th rack.
Okay. Well, there's nothing to be confused about there.
Oh, here's a crop rotation. Cool. What is this? Get anything sweet?
Glacial Chasm. Glacial Chasm. Glacial Chasm.
Is that in the list?
It's in the list.
Okay. The problem is he only has 6 life points to play with, and
Buys him a turn. Buys him 2 turns.
Sure, turn and a half, kind of. All right, Glacial Chasm. Flint and I have a little bit of experience with this one. It is pretty sweet, but I think it's too late. I guess that makes sense of why Phil was attacking, because he knew he was going to play the crop rotation to get this.
All right, Phil's at 4.
If he will,
Pivotal card. It is a land.
But he's not going to be able to pay the upkeep next turn. There's a curse scroll, right? It did deal 2 damage. Phil was at 6, and then he went down to 4.
Yeah, pay 2 life. It doesn't deal damage. You pay life. If it dealt damage, it would be insanely broken. All right, what is it? It's got to be good. Oh, it's a Treetop Village. Don't think that's going to do it. And just because Mano says, we'll have 2 Diabolic Edicts. So if you want to activate it tapped, you're welcome to. Aaron in chat talking about how he was introduced to Glacial Chasm. I'll tell you that story someday, Mike.
All right.
moral is never just play all of your red spells in your hand simultaneously when your opponent has crop rotation out.
Learn the hard way, I guess.
Oh, goodness. All right. You want to
Right.
unmute them and let's see what they're saying?
Sure. That was a kick in the teeth, it seemed like.
So that cleaned everything up. Yeah, easy game. Well, that was a very good show, I guess. Your deck.
Yeah, apologies. I think like the issue is that like I was always one turn off. Like in the first game, I didn't have the scepter first because you were able to do first turn discard. And then in this game, like I had a pretty fast start if I could just wait one more turn, because then I could have inline tutored. I don't think it would have been 4 racks, but
Yeah.
it still would have been like a little bit more competitive, you know?
Right. Oh, if you had Enlightened Tutor, then you would have had it, right? Because then you have Oath of Scholars, you have the whole thing on turn 3.
Yeah. So it was not a bad hand. It was just like it just basically had to fade one turn or have a first turn Gust the Scepter.
I literally don't think let's leave this in play. That you could beat. There's like no draw that could beat 4. Maybe a quick upheaval, something like that. But even then, I can replay the racks. Like it's just going to be really. I didn't realize how good the rack was. I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't realize how insane it was.
Well, especially in that particular game in which like my thing basically just emptied out my hand like turn 2.
So I had 3 racks in my opening hand. My opening hand was like 2 lands, duress, 3 racks, diabolic edict or something.
Which is crazy because like you could literally just do nothing and just play like 2 or 3 racks and that would have been like it.
So I was a little bit nervous that you were going to therapy me. You're not going to name rack. You're going to name Dark Ritual probably or whatever. But then next turn, if you play like whatever, the 1/1 Veteran Explorer and Flashback Therapy on rack, I'm only going to have the 1 rack and I might lose the unlosable game. So like if you led with Therapy or Veteran Explorer, I think I was going to play rack and not duress, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting about this deck is like I've goldfished it a few times and there's like a few different starts that I can have. Like one is with like the Veteran Explorer start, and honestly that's probably the stronger start than what I had been getting, which is like another one is like you mana bond and Gust the Scepter or Library of Lang, and then the next turn you try to do a Oath of Scholars. But I think Veteran Explorer just opens up a lot more lines. And it's like kind of a blocker.
It's a little, I mean, giving me 2 lands is kind of a big deal too, but
I think against your deck, I'm not actually that worried about giving you lands. Because like you have a lot of discard, but I don't know if you have a lot of top end threats.
I mean, I really only have Mind Slicer. I took out all my pits against you. They seem fucking atrocious. But yeah, it's just Mind Slicer. It does get me a quick Mind Slicer, but that doesn't do a whole lot. Like you can block it and you don't care that much about your hands,
Yeah.
So it's like a 4/3. So I guess you're probably right. It turns on my my scrolls to like actually use them, I guess.
Yeah, I think this deck, what it also needs is like a core Haven or something. Like I actually really wish that Maze of Ith was in the format, but I think it needs just like a tutor target that can help slow down the clock. Not that it would have helped against 4 racks or anything, but in the first game, like an elephant token or whatever would have been good.
No, that would have saved a ton of damage. Yeah, I get this second game. I don't think anything much mattered at all, other than like, I mean, I don't even know like soup. No, I just can't think of a way you can win because no matter what, you have to take a whole bunch of turns, right? So
yeah, I mean, like honestly, when I built this deck, I don't think I was considering 4 racks as a potential.
Well, now
the thing is,
when you play Robin, don't you have to ban Pox now because he has 4 racks on that deck too, which I feel like is next week.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Maybe I'll get him with Griffin Canyon or something. Maybe you won't expect it. I know he plays a lot of Duress and Wasteland, but I got the Teferi's Response, so I'll be ready.
Yeah, holy shit, man. Teferi's Response. If you pull that one off once, this whole PSS is worth it for you.
We can only hope.
I know.
Can you guys hear us?
What did they say? Oh.
We'll release them from their cages now. I got it. What's up, guys? Sorry, it was not a super fun matchup, but it was kind of hilarious when he laid down the racks, and I was like, wow, that's like literally the perfect counter for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, Mano, did you have a verbal or a physical reaction when he played Mana Bond on turn 1 when you had like 800 racks in your hand?
I can't hear him. God damn it.
Mano just started to breathe heavily.
Yeah, I kept a hand in which I was like, okay, worst case scenario, or at least I thought worst case scenario. I was like, okay, if he takes the Enlightened Tutor, at least I'll be able to like spew out my hand turn 2, and I'll have a Treetop Village for like blocking or attacking. And then whatever I top deck, I'll have like 4 mana. So I should be in like a pretty good spot. And then I empty out my hand and he just lays down the racks, and I was like, well, that backfired.
I mean,
That-
what better scenario? Mana Bond. All I was waiting was for you to say activate Mana Bond. I was fucking just waiting for it. I thought you were gonna do it on turn 1, but the second turn I felt very certain it was gonna happen, and that was that. Racks come, that's that.
So, Brian, we have a request from chat for you
Yeah.
to show off the duresses and the call of the herds.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely no problem.
And
Tell you
while we're
about
doing that,
all the cool stuff.
I can just say that when we saw the 3rd rack, we were like, "Oh my god!" And when we saw the 4th, it was just like, "Okay,
Yeah.
this is just
I kind of
brutal."
realized today when I was like, Rack seems like it's a fine card, whatever it's going to do its thing, but specifically against him, it's absurd. And I really just realized that today in my limited testing. Here's all my tech.
So does the Duress have like an edition? Does it is like say it's like 7th edition? Because that would normally be white bordered. So I'm just wondering because
they all have white backs.
Okay.
So they're all just actual test prints from Wizards. They have the set symbol on them though. Like these all have No, they actually this isn't the right set because they have like judgment set symbols on them. So I don't even know what this means.
All of them have judgment?
No, okay, so this is funny. This Call of the Herd, I don't know if you guys can see. One of them has a judgment set. Oh no. They both have it, but they're in different places.
Yeah, like you could see they're mirrored. Yeah.
That's so weird. Yeah, look. And the symbol's on the outside. That's so funny. But they do all have the judgment set symbol, that scale.
Okay.
Weird.
Interesting.
These are all gifts. These were gifts to Jamie Park. We share a collection from Worth Wolpert for his wedding a few years ago.
Okay.
Worth's been around at Wizards since basically the beginning.
Yeah.
Anything bad that's ever happened at Wizards, you can blame Worth for.
Well, we did.
Yeah. And but he has all sorts of the shit lying around, and he sent Jamie this like really sweet care package. We have like a counter spell and a disenchant, and I have an opposition.
Wow.
Really cool shit. Yeah.
Yeah, those are cool.
So, Phil, I got to ask, you go on the podcast with Mano, you talk all about the deck. He even tells you on the podcast that it's all part of his plan, and you still run the deck against him. What were your thoughts coming into this match?
Honestly, I kind of missed the racks when I was browsing through the decks. I was like, okay, he has like a ton of discard that honestly, I really don't care that much about unless he's on the play and has a duress and I'm like depending on one card, which kind of happened in the first game. But other than that, like, I don't know if the matchup is that bad other than obviously the racks. I think the only chance that I had to beat him in the second game was if he had a 5th rack come out. Then, I think we would have won.
The first game could have been a lot different if like the Call of the Herd didn't come down so early. Like if you're not under that much pressure, then you might have a little bit more time to do things. But yeah, that 3/3 came down pretty quick, and then that made things a lot more problematic.
Yeah, because that was the other thing is like I don't think he has like a super fast clock, and so I was like, okay, if he just has a handful of discard, and he's like making us both discard or dealing me like 2 damage a turn through scroll, like I think I'm okay with that. And so I think that was like the initial plan going in. But yeah, I don't know. The clock was a lot faster than I thought.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward for the Sunder Nickfic deck to come back. So hopefully it doesn't stay in the vault for forever. Hopefully we'll see it again on a future episode, and hopefully it can do its thing a little more than getting crushed by the rack. So
now he's had like 4 basically games where he did nothing so far. You know, he's due to draw some gas and then like actually do something. I'd be really scared, Robin. If you're watching, I would be really fucking scared for next week because he's going to go off in one way, shape, or form. He's due.
So, Phil, I have good news. You are not playing Robin next week.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
Guess who's playing Robin?
Oh fuck me.
Yep.
I knew one of them was. Oh well, whatever. I'll smoke
No,
it.
it's in the Google sheet.
That explains a lot.
Can you link me that?
Yeah. Might want to give that one a read. Yeah.
The one thing I will say about the bannings was I had to ban his zombie deck. Like I can't discard through his zombie deck. I can't bird through it. I can't do anything through. I can't Solfatara it. I have to ban it. That deck crushes all of my decks, so that was easy.
Isn't that kind of amazing though? Is like I could have potentially made the best deck in this entire event, and no one will ever see it.
Yeah, really, it's insane. Yeah. But so I knew. But given that, so I'm banning that, and then given he banned Solfatara, I knew that he was 100% on that deck because he can't risk playing Mind Slicer against his Griffin Canyon deck, right? This deck has 8 discard spells and 4 wastelands and Diabolic Edict. Like that deck matchup has to be 90-10. You know, he can't risk that. So I knew he was going to be on that. And honestly, it was like a reasonably close decision. Like really just the fact that I like this deck a lot and I have the cool test prints put this over the top for me. But I don't think it was like a landslide. Birds is okay. It has a clock. It has mana leaks. It has disenchants in the sideboard. You know, it's not the worst thing in the world against him. But that's how the logic played out for me, at least.
Yeah, for me, besides being extremely intimidated by your game 1 with Solfatara last week, was I was actually not that worried about game 1 against Solfatara because like you can try to prevent me from playing lands, but I think you can still mana bond through it. And so I'm not that worried about it, but the sideboard was actually really worrying because you had a whole bunch of blasts and then also like bounce effects. And if I'm playing like a 4 mana blue enchantment, the last thing I want is for you to just like bounce it at end of turn or something. Or like in response to mana bond trigger or something.
Funny, because I'm not kidding. I couldn't even tell you what's in my sideboard of Solfatara. I could not tell you. Other than it doesn't have any fucking mass removal. My kingdom for Pyroclasms or Pyrokinesis, which I slightly blame me. I'll take 30% of the blame. I'll give Jeff Blue 40% of the blame. And then I'll give 30% of the blame to the rest of all these assholes in PSS who are playing these aggro decks in a spice fest. Come on, guys.
Some people like to beat down, so
it's ridiculous.
Plus, like aggro is like kind of like spicy in itself. Like, there's not that many aggro. Well, I guess there are in pre-modern.
But like, this is like I talk about this in old school all the time. People play like spicy aggro decks that are just like mono green is like a spicy deck, right? But it does just play all its dudes and get you dead or whatever, you know? Like it's just trying to get you dead, and it's very redundant, and it just does its thing, and it's not doing anything tricky or whatever. Sure, it might play creatures that in a vacuum are spicy, but it's still trying to just get you dead. It's not trying to do any cool things for the most part. So that's where I'm coming from at least regarding. I could have old school biased spice goggles on regarding aggro. It's possible.
Sure.
Okay, see, this is a hand that I would have wanted against you, which is just like a first turn Vedex followed by like hiding an Oath under a Scepter and then just chilling.
God. I was scared to death of Scepter. I like when you ripped that second Scepter in the first game, I was like, am I going to lose when you mulligan to 5 and I duress you and hit and somehow I'm going to lose this game? But you just drew literal absolutely nothing the whole game.
Did you end up getting your Scepters?
No, I didn't buy them yet. I actually was going to buy them. I found a set on eBay for like 36 for a set. And I was like, this feels like I'm buying the top. And then I found a set on TCG for like 33. And I'm like, nope, I can see the trend. It's trickling down. I'm going to wait. I'm going to get them for like 29 in a week. That's my plan.
I think I got mine for like $1.
Yeah.
We get it. I know.
I'm glad I used it. I played against Flint one time, and there was a list that had it, so I bought some. So I have my 4 Guthor Scepter. So
I honestly think the card is not bad, man. It's good. It's reasonable against discard, protecting your card. It's great in all of these. I think I could be playing some in this deck, in this bottomless pit Mind Slicer deck. It costs 0. It hides my good shit when I want a Mind Slicer or pit. Like I think it's actually a reasonable card to play.
Yeah, that can make sense.
All right. Well, sorry that wasn't a good show, guys.
It's okay.
No, I'll put on a good show next week. Hopefully, we'll get to Oath out something nice.
Yeah, you're due.
Any final comments before we wrap up for the night, guys?
I would tell people to be very afraid of the March monthly tournaments, because if you listen to the recent ATC, I talked about a different variant of this deck that's more artifact focused that I think is actually much better, but it's just a lot more boring. It basically runs like LED and Tangle Wire and like just like a lot more prisony, but I think it's actually pretty good. So we shall see. Or if all else fails, I'll do the time tested strategy of just putting in the Dreadnought package and probably make top 8.
Who does that?
Yeah.
It's funny. I will say it's funny how potent your deck looked in the spreadsheet when I first saw it. I was like, Jesus, this thing has all of this shit going on and all these combos and all these overlapping layers and parts. And then when you see it in action, you're just like, what? None of this does anything, you know? Like on paper, it looks really intimidating, you know? It's like that you're like your deck is like the basketball player that has the new Jordans, the brand new fucking tearaways. He looks so good during warmups, and then like he just sits the bench the whole game. You know, that's
Well,
yeah.
I guess we'll see when I play against someone who's not running 4 rack and draws them. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Well, thanks a lot, guys. It was a bit of a disappointment for you, Phil, I know, but there's always next week. And congrats, Mano.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the games, man.
And sorry, Phil. I really am rooting for you.
No worries. All right.
All right.
Right.
Peace.
Night, guys.
Later.
Okay, so as we wrap things up, let's look at our schedule for our Wednesday show. So we saw Robin, Aaron, Phil, and Bryan face off tonight. And then on Wednesday, we will have Andy Culpepper for our first match playing against Gabe Farkas. And then our late night match will be Sean Sullivan against Anthony Harrison. So if you... the decks that Andy has, if I can remember off the top of my head, are Pirates. He has Sliv Deuce, so slivers, and he has
Wild Zombies.
And then Gabe has Netherhops, Blue-Green Fairies, and then the Dothy aggro deck that we saw in week 1.
Yep. And
Sean has the Prosperity Bloom that we saw. He has Torpors V, which is a take on the Turbos V Dream Halls deck. And then his last one is... I'm drawing a blank.
It's the Spirit Mirror Control.
Oh, yes, the Unnatural Spirit Mirror Control. Mm-hmm. And then Anthony has the Tortured Existence deck that we saw last week. He has the Dig Site deck. And his last one is...
Blue-White Wizards.
Blue-White Wizard, yes. So a lot of potential for new matchups that we haven't seen before, and we're pretty excited to continue on with the series. I just want to take a quick moment to thank everyone who was able to tune in. I want to thank the people that followed tonight, Dank NATO and then Jew Lightning. Thank you for your support. Thanks for everyone who's joining.
NATO.
Yeah, thank everyone who's joining in on the chat and kind of keeping everything going. Is there anything else you want to add, Flint?
No. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing some new decks on Wednesday.
Yeah. All right. So thanks again, everyone, and until next time, take care.
Bye, everybody.